Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are taking a look at not just one box, but two of them. The first one being the Legends of the Crown box that was released, well, obviously, for the Crown. And the second one we'll be taking a look at today is Markov's Prometheus, which is a unique generator ship that comes in for the Commonwealth. Now we are kicking things off with the Legends of the Crown box. This is the old Battlefleet box that is sort of not the smallest they make, but the second smallest from that one, so it works with a sleeve that you have to take off, and then you get this gorgeous box with the embossed logo from Dystopian Wars on there. We open it up and let's see what's inside of here. Inside of here you find a pamphlet which has two QR codes on there, both for Dystopian Wars and Armored Clash, in case you want to look up your assembly instructions, unit cards, etc. for all of your models. This is something they do for all of their releases, link these documents instead of just including them, which I think is good because it does allow you to clean everything up if there are any mistakes. Right then, onto the actual ships that are inside of the box. The first part I've pulled out is the main hull of the HMCS Warcradle, which is a Guardian Generator class ship, but which has been made for the Canadians. As you can see, it has the typical Canadian front part with the ablative prow armor on there, which is also reflected in the rules. And it also comes with 8 Guardian Generators spread out across the ship, because this is a Camelot class and is made to add a lot of Guardian points to your fleet. If you want to know what these ships do in-game, definitely stick around until the second half of the video, where I will be going over the updated rules for these two legendary ships and also Markov's Prometheus. This little part I pulled out of the bag does belong to the other ship, so let's go and see what the top bridge is first of HMCS Warcradle. And this is it. It comes with the bridge section, but also the McGill radar that sits on top of the ship like this, so it isn't exactly a difficult assembly to do. On top of these parts you also get these lovely little things. In grand total you get 5 of them. These are the escort tokens for the Crown. Now I believe they only came in plastic on the Indian Raj sprue that I've recently reviewed. If you want to see all of these boxes up close, by the way, definitely subscribe to the channel, because I tend to review as many as Warcradle Studios will send to me, and I want to thank them again for sending these out to me as well. And as I said, they only come on the Indian Raj sprue, so if you were not really interested in getting those, well, you can get your escorts via this way as well. As this is a standalone release, you also get 4 heavy gun batteries, because one thing that sets the Warcradle apart from the non-named version is that it can take up to 4 heavy gun batteries instead of the usual 3. The other main ship that can be found is this one, which is the Nautilus, which only really needs 2 parts, one part for the top there, and then the sort of chainsaw that comes in there, that's the Vengeance keel saw, and I'll be going over what that does as well in game in the second half of the video. I won't be having many issues assembling all of this, it's just a case of cleaning everything up, and given how these are one parts molds on the big ship hulls, that only really requires you to clean up the bottom half. Now it's time for some size comparisons. I do not have the original Camelot Guardian class, but I do have the Victory to compare it to, and the hull is pretty much identical in length, but this one is definitely more sleeker than the Carrier version. The Carrier does end up looking a lot more beefy, but that has to do with that giant deck it has on the top of it. As you can see, it really has a very similar look to the cruisers from the Canadians, which I have painted up. These are the ones I got from the Sturginium Skies 2-player starter set, and yeah, that's just a lovely pairing between the two of them. Speaking of Sturginium Skies, I think this box is an absolutely brilliant idea to get if you're looking into building other things than just Toronto classes with your plastic cruisers that come in Sturginium Skies. There's also some lovely details like the maple leaf, definitely something nice that they can do with these alternate hulls through these Legends boxes, and I'm really a big fan of that. The Nautilus, when we look at that ship, is also significantly larger than the old Morgana submarines. I'm so happy that they released these separately, because I was keeping one of them apart to paint up in a different color scheme, but I'm glad I didn't, because this one is, yeah, significantly beefier, and that is also reflected in the rules, because it's got more armor, more citadel, and is overall a much more sturdy ship than the classic Morgana that we know. In fact, this Nautilus is a prototype of the old Morgana, and if you're not familiar with this is a model from the Lost World Exodus range, which is called the Drum of the Nautilus, and I've recently painted this one up in a sort of teal and gold mixture, and I think I'm going to go for the same look for my Morgana. I also added some OSL effects of some very primitive hot running engines, because it is a prototype after all, and I will be painting up sort of in the same style as these, which will be a good thing because you can use this ship in any fleet, so it having a bit of a different color scheme definitely doesn't hurt. And in case you don't know what this is the box from the actual crew of the Nautilus that you can buy in 35mm scale. I have this box, but I sadly haven't gotten around to opening it up yet and painting it. My pile of potential just keeps growing. But you know, when you've got that many fun little jobs to look forward to, that's not really the worst thing, is it? Now, on to the next box, Markov's Prometheus. The same size box again, which is the, well, the battle fleet set that you have to slide open, and then let's open it up and see what's inside of it. Well, we find the same pamphlet in here, which is now par for the course for all of these boxes, along with a bag of resin parts that we're going to tip over and see what makes this box special. Now this is a ship that actually, even if you do not play Commonwealth, it's such an iconic ship in the setting that it's almost worth picking up just to give it a snazzy paint job and to have on your shelf. I sometimes do just collect these sorts of things just because I like the look of them and because they represent a bit of a painting challenge where you can go all out on. Painting is always a bit tricky. You want to make sure that you have something that is repeatable and doable to ever get your full force finished, but it's nice to have these ships where you can just go to town and it doesn't even matter if it's exactly the same thing as before. Speaking of exactly the same thing as before, this is my regular hull from the Hypatia class for my Enlightened. I of course will not be painting it in the exact same style. I'll be using my Russian paint scheme for this one. It is the exact same hull as the Enlightened ship though, but what makes it special are these small parts, such as the wings that have to be assembled on the back. It comes with this lovely Russian Commonwealth sort of iconography, I should say, on it, whereas the Enlightened one comes with the bare standard wings. Now on the top part you need to assemble this rather flat looking disc, but that is because on that flat looking disc you are going to be installing a cryo generator, which is of course unique Russian tech. And speaking of unique Russian tech, you are also getting a couple of railguns to slap on there. There's of course the shroud generator, which goes onto the normal flat discs, but also 3 tri-railguns. There's 2 other resin generators that come with it that go on the flat bit, but the problem with the Enlightened hulls is that they came with rounded areas that your rounded guns go into, and these now come with these flatter areas that you can slide in there. You do have to be wary of the orientation. There's definitely 2 different sides because it has to slot into that bit of an open gap you have there on the hull. So yeah, you do this on both ends, and then the final piece that you have to put in there is a new and unique sort of a smokestack that is more in line with the Russian design than it is with the Covenant of the Enlightened style. And that's how a few small changes to a hull can make it look like a completely different ship, because, well, the bit on the front here that fills up the front weapon gap also gives you that iconic Russian prow look that goes on there, and with that you have a ship that definitely belongs in the Commonwealth but still has that unique design of the stolen ship that started it all, that started the dystopian age. Now, why do I think this is actually a pretty good box to get? Well, if you started with a 2-player starter set, the Sturginium Skies, and you wanted to really go deep with the Crown, you had one big disadvantage. The Crown only has one option for a flagship in here for a main battle fleet, which are the Canadian cruisers. And if you bought this battle fleet, this box set rather, you would have to build 2 of those cruisers as a Toronto, and that basically made the 3rd choice pretty much almost always a Halifax rules wise, because that is just the best thing to combo with those 2 ships. Well, if you've gotten this box and you're pairing it with this Legends of the Crown box, you're actually free to do whatever you want with those cruisers, which is also quite a good thing. Rules-wise, that HMCS Tilor Cult is also nothing to sneeze at. It does clock in at 360 points, which isn't exactly cheap, but what you're getting for it is significant. It is not the fastest ship. With mass 4 and speed 4, you're only moving about 8 inches, but it can turn 4 times within that 8 inches in the latter half, of course, because you first have to do your drift. And in terms of armor and citadel, this really is a strong ship. Armor 8, citadel 16 is nothing to sneeze at, especially given how it has ablative prow armor, which basically allows you to negate 4 exploding hits that an opponent would be scoring against you, most of the times. A few keywords as an exception. In terms of its firepower, it is slightly more tricky to maneuver because it's got 2 forward-facing guns, 270 degrees, and 2 backward-facing guns, meaning that they also have 270-degree angles. You sort of want to be shooting from the sides of the ship to maximize your firepower, but that's not where your ablative prow armor is. Luckily, there is an option though to change a single heavy gun battery, and you would of course always pick one that is in the back, to change that with a Guardian 2 generator for free, and then the model has Guardian generator 8 instead of 6. Why is this personally an option I would go for? Well, if you've got this one 8 and Guardian Surge, you would be amassing a whopping 16 points for your force just with this one ship, and you would still have something that has 3 heavy gun batteries to fire to the side if you want to, and yeah, that pairs very well with the heavy firepower it has, so it can shoot all 3 guns with the lead value instead of having to use the support one. In addition, you also get an inspirational ship, so you get to reroll a bit around everything and removes some of the disorders around it. So yeah, a very good investment if you ask me. With 15 hull points in grand total, this one is also not exactly a ship your opponent is going to sink easily, especially if it's generating 16 points, so a very good option. And recently, the Nautilus, which has also seen a couple of significant buffs. The new ship is a lot bigger, and that is now reflected in the new profile. The normal ones, the old profile it was from a Morgana, and that left it with only armor 5 and Citadel 12, I believe. That has been beefed up to 6 with a very beefy 15, so you're not taking catastrophic hit after catastrophic hit with this thing. In addition, it also now has 9 hull points, which is pretty decent, especially since the ship only clocks in at 140 points, which is pretty awesome, because, well, 140 points is just a bit more for what you'd expect for a heavy cruiser, and this is getting very close to it stat-wise to those heavy cruisers. Firepower-wise, the Nautilus isn't exactly spectacular. It's a heavy torpedo salvo that fires towards the front. You do get to reroll your blanks thanks to the the Silent Stalker rule in here, but that's not exactly a great amount of firepower for a 140 points ship. The real kicker is of course in the Vengeance Keel Saw that it can do, so you basically want to be re-ramming with this one, and thanks to Silent Stalker it will at least be deploying 20 inch away from the enemy deployment zone. Add to this full steam ahead, it basically allows the Nautilus to move up to 12 inch up the board, so you're in a good position to start second turn ramming if you play quite aggressively with it. But the biggest selling point is of course that it also has Devil's Own Luck, which allows you to counter 1 Valor effect in the opposing force without even having to exceed the value on the card. You do only get to use that one once per turn, so be careful when you spend this good ability. And it is a lot more than just a Morgana when it comes to other rules, besides just better armor and the more hull points. It also has the Chowkidar crew. I hope I say that right, I'm not entirely sure. But this model basically ignores the effects of the emergency disorder condition, although it still counts as having that disorder level when it comes to taking additional damage points, etc, etc. Furthermore, in a ramming action, this model does not suffer from disorder, which is a good thing because, well, the Vengeance Keel Saw is pretty much made for ramming. And it also helps with repairs because this unit may add 2 additional action dice to its repair test, and this is in addition to the action dice given for the model's mass, so 4 dice for repairs, which is pretty awesome. In addition, it also has the Fury of Nemu. This unit may ram surface units, and this unit also scores an additional victory point each time it scores victory points for destroying a surface unit with a assault or ramming action. Mind you, you do have to destroy the whole unit, not just a single model in there, but if you can finish a unit off, it's a free victory point, so that is pretty awesome. It's not just that though, the unit may reroll blank results in attacks and assaults against initial targets with a mass of 3 or more. So if you're not trying to tackle cruisers, which will be trickier to do, if you're attacking mass 3 models, you're getting quite a bit more out of it. And you mustn't forget, if it's trying to ram, it's got ramming 12 from the Vengeance Keelsaw, which is already a weapon with sustained and piercing, allowing it to then also reroll blanks. Those rams can become very, very effective when doing so against mass 3 targets, because, well, you have to take your hull points, so if they're battle ready, that's at 5. Your max speed boost is also going to be another 5, and then you're rolling 22 dice, which can cause double crits if you're able to reach the citadel of your target, and you probably are going to reach at least 16 hits with this one, unless you're really rolling abysmally and even re-rolling blanks, and sustained isn't going to save you, which is incredibly unlikely. Actually, scratch that, it's actually 25 dice, because I forgot that this one also has Terror from Below. So if it's ramming a surface unit, mind you, it's only when you're ramming surface units that you're going to be able to get up to 25 dice, and with re-rolling blanks and sustained, that does sort of put you at an option to get even a catastrophic hit if you need 32 dice, or rather hits, for that one. So yeah, it's quite a heavy thing. So I would be aiming this ship squarely at my opponent's mass 3 flagships. And as if that wasn't enough, the great thing about the Nautilus mercenary battle fleet is that you must include the Nautilus. That's the only option that you get. It used to say that you were able to take a few other submarine units, that's all been scratched. It's just that one, but the great news is it now gives you a command override for your force, which is pretty damn good, and a valorous conduct on top of that. So you can you are allowed to use one card, counting as 50, for a Valor effect, which is, yeah, 2 very significant bonuses for an already pretty good ship. And this is available to everyone, so yeah, it's a very good box if you ask me. And then the other heavy hitter is Markov's Prometheus, the ship that sort of started it all. Not exactly the fastest ship, it moves at the same 8 speed if you add the drift and the speed value together. Slightly less maneuverable than the Tiller Cult that we just saw, only allowed 3 turns, and not quite as armored at armor 7 and Citadel 13. It does have decent defenses though, but you have to remember this one does not come with Luminiferous defense, so compared to other Hypathias etc, it is slightly more vulnerable. It does come now with heavy firepower, which is pretty good because it's got 3 tri-railguns on there, and tri-railguns are excellent for shooting at skimmers and flyers, not so good for shooting at submarines because you actually lose dice when you try to do that. But the main downside to railguns is that their support value isn't exactly stellar, and now with heavy firepower you can actually bypass that one, so the firepower has gone up significantly. The other very significant buff that this ship now has is that it has a cryo generator. However, it is an experimental generator ship, and that means that any friendly models with the surface unit trait, only with the surface unit trait, and at least with mass 2 or greater, count as being equipped with the same generators as this model while they remain within 7 inch of this model. However, this unit cannot have more than one of any generator type, and it cannot give any unit the benefit of the cryo generator at all, or from any other generator type more than one at a time. That means getting 2 shield generators isn't an option with this thing, and if you thought you could make a fleet that is comprised entirely of cryo generators, I'm going to have to disappoint you as well. That is something they nipped in the butt before they released this ship, luckily. It's still pretty awesome, mind you, because it's an experimental shield amplifier that comes on this ship, and that means that any friendly surface units within 7 inch of this model with this rule counts as being +1 for calculating the effectiveness of the shield generator, and it enables the shield generator to be limited to a maximum of 4 dice being removed rather than the usual 3. So even if you're somebody who's using, I'd say, double Borodino for instance, and you plonk Markov's Prometheus in between, that is going to be a nightmare to take down. And if you're following the channel for cheeky competitive advantages, I think Double Borodino coupled with Markov's Prometheus, and then the Patron that makes one flagship unit, the Double Borodino, a Fortunes of War ship, I think that is absolutely the go-to play to create a competitive list for the Commonwealth. Because let's be honest, most of the Russian ships do have the ablative armor rule that will be in play, already disallowing a couple of those exploding hits to be generating extra dice, which means that I would not be giving the shroud generator quite often to other ships, but I would always be opting for the shield generator, which can stack with a magnetic generator, making a lot of your ships, yeah, almost impervious. It's a strong word, but very hard to kill with any aerial weapons. The shroud generator is probably the option I would choose if the opponent was shooting at Markov's Prometheus instead of any of the ships nearby, because, well, let's be honest, anybody who knows what they're doing will be targeting this ship first before even attempting to tackle things around it, because this is such a force multiplier in terms of defense, and the Russians are already known for having high defenses. Yeah, you're almost always going to have to target this ship, so the shroud generator definitely is not useless. Now this is incredibly good, but there is one thing that you have to be warned for. The experimental generator ship also has a second rule. You can't just bunch up your entire fleet within 5 inches of it, because if this ship blows, if this unit is destroyed, it inflicts a catastrophic explosion on all friendly models within 5 inches. Ironically, only friendly models, so if you're just bonking in there with, for instance, a submarauder, that's not going to actually affect it, which is, I think, a bit odd. Might be tweaked later on, but we'll see. And yeah, if that is within 5 inch, you definitely want to be careful that you keep your ships not too close by, because then you're just creating a giant time bomb in the middle of your fleet, which is also something to be wary of. And there we have it, the legendary ship, the Prometheus. Not just highly collectible in case you do not play with the Commonwealth, but also a very strong entry in the Commonwealth Orbat if you do happen to play with them. That'll be it for me for a couple of weeks now, because I'm actually going on holiday. I'll be enjoying my time off in Scandinavia with the in-laws, so you won't be hearing from me for a couple of weeks. If any major news drops for Armored Clash, for instance, or more about Dystopian Wars, I'm definitely going to bundle everything together, all the info we know, and I do hope to see you in the next videos. Until then, bye!